So I'm Josh, as he pointed out. So before anything else, I really want to say happy Friday, and thank you for making it out this early morning. I'm really excited for you all to be here. But before I get into the spiel of what is Forward, how many of you here in this room know what Forward is or who Forward is? Can you just show raise of hands? Okay, good. So I see a Forward t-shirt. That's great. It's kind of funny because my colleague Catherine Lyons gave us some spiel about 4 months ago, and I'm very happy to see new faces because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of grow who knows Forward in our brand here in LA and across the nation. But more importantly, who knows how immigration is related to the tech industry? Or can someone point out? Is there any microphones passed around? Or
What was the question?
how does immigration affect the tech industry? H-1B. Okay, I heard H-1B. So that is exactly right. Among other things, F1 has visas and J1s and all of that good stuff. So I'll get into that. I'm really interested in the intersection of tech, politics, and immigration. But Forward is a tech advocacy firm started 2 years ago by a lot of our tech leaders. So Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Marissa Mayer, Reid Hoffman, Drew Houston, about 40, 50 of those kind of tech influencers with the goal of trying to connect tech into politics. So one of the biggest problems that they saw and that I continue to see is that tech, Silicon Valley, Silicon Beach, Pasadena, they are moving very rapidly. I mean, goodness, look here. We're growing in probably a month or so. This will be all decked out. There will be a lot of people innovating, starting having great startup ideas. And tech moves really rapidly. DC, on the other hand, doesn't. And it's mired by politics. It's mired by a lot of this old way of thinking. So it's trying to connect that feedback loop. How can we give tech a voice in all of this? So that's the goal of Forward US. And Forward US was started 2 years ago, like I said, with the goal of trying to mobilize the tech community around politics, trying to move the knowledge economy forward. So we started that by advocating for comprehensive immigration reform. So H-1B visas are a big thing. They are probably the only pathway that foreign entrepreneurs can have to stay here in this country. There are other visas like the AB2, the J1, but really the H-1B visas are the only pathway for foreign entrepreneurs to stay in this country. So what we've done here at Forward is we're trying to help raise awareness, helping share those stories. So at our core, Forward, and I know we have like the Mark Zuckerberg, the Bill Gates, and those big names, but at our core, and what my job is to highlight those stories. We're an advocacy organization, and my job isn't to tell you this is what to do. My job is to give people the resources and the power and the voice to make sure that they get empowered, that people can share their stories. We recently had a meeting with Judy Chu. How many of you know Judy Chu? Okay, good. I would hope so. If you don't, she's the rep for your district for Pasadena. And she, in the past, she had come out strongly against H-1B programs for a variety of reasons, many of them justified. But we had a really cool roundtable, high-skilled roundtable, with Judy Chu, with the goal of trying to present stories to her. So Judy Chu, it was really great because it was visible the impact that stories can have on people. There are a lot of people who are on H-1B visas, people from Caltech, students from Caltech, postdocs, and they were saying, look, I don't know how to stay in this country. I really want to stay, but there's no pathway. I mean, in one particular case, again, this was a Caltech student. He was on a J1 visa. He was a postdoc in, I think, biological sciences. I don't really remember exactly what. And he told us, look, I'm going to have to leave the country really soon. But I just got engaged to my girlfriend, who's also a foreign entrepreneur, and she is also having a baby, and I don't know how we're going to stay here. How can we fix this? What avenues do I have to stay here? And that's part of what we're trying to do here in this country, and it's part of Forward. We're trying to highlight a lot of these stories of foreign entrepreneurs, people who are trying to innovate, people who want to stay here and create jobs for for Pasadena, for Southern California, for our like national economy, like trying to make sure that they can have that pathway to stay. So forward, what have we done in the last 2 years? We're a national organization, so we have a presence here in Southern California, Austin, Boston, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, so all of the major tech hubs, or at least that we've been able to deem so far. We're probably going to expand soon. But we have a presence here, and their job is to do the same thing I'm doing, to make sure that we're able to highlight these immigrant stories. And that's been our main issue area. That's something that started with Mark Zuckerberg 2 years ago when he started Forward. And we've been really successful, I would say. I mean, there are like 3 things I would highlight from what Forward has done. One is being able to actually move politics. We started with immigration. There was a bipartisan bill that was able to pass the Senate. Unfortunately, it didn't pass the House, which is why we're still advocating for immigration reform. But we were actually part of that conversation, trying to make sure that people in DC knew what are the issues that affect the tech community, especially when it comes to immigration. So we were really involved in that. We continue to be involved in that discussion and making those relationships. Unfortunately, policy doesn't happen overnight as much as I would like to, and to the chagrin of everyone else. But this is something that we continue to work for, something that our founders are really passionate about, and that's kind of like what we're trying to do. 2, I think the really interesting thing, and part of my job here, is to mobilize the tech community, and that's much broader than just the immigration stuff. So that's creating, making sure that the tech community in whatever turf that you're at, that they have a unified voice, that they're able to come together and they're able to help promote policies that push the knowledge economy forward. So how does that look like in Southern California? I was just talking to someone here, and one of the things I see here in Southern California is the tech community isn't united. It's very fragmented. We're kind of in a unique position that LA is geographically challenged, for lack of better words. We have Pasadena, the Pasadena Tech Hub, which is developing. You guys are witness to this. The downtown LA Tech Hub, Santa Monica, Silicon Beach Tech Hub, Irvine, San Diego. So there's a lot of fragmented pieces, and the question that many people, including ourselves, are trying to answer is how do we unite all of these tech communities together, and around what, and what's the voice and the platform that we can give them to make sure that their voice is being heard. So that's something that we're trying to work for. It's an ongoing process, but that's something that we've been meeting with other groups, with other startup communities. And again, one of the cool things that we've been able to do, and this would go back to the Judy Chu meeting, is that we were able to pull together, companies in Judy Chu's district that are really representative of the Pasadena Tech Hub, and really more than that, give it a voice. And they're able to talk to the issue of immigration. I imagine at some point we're probably going to move away from immigration. Mark Zuckerberg had a really interesting blog post in 2013 when Forward was started, and there was 3 things outlined: comprehensive immigration reform, education reform, STEM research. That belabors the point. Again, there is a need for tech to get more involved in politics and to give them a voice in a lot of this discussion. So the 3rd point that was really interesting, and again it goes back to immigration, is changing the narrative, storytelling, and changing the narrative around immigration. One of the cool things that we've done as an organization, we started Immigrant Heritage Month last year. We just finished Immigrant Heritage Month just June. And there's honestly, to this point, no one was doing anything to create this positive narrative around immigration. And again, immigration has been mired a lot by this negative connotation, very political issue. But if you come back to the core of what is immigration, we're all immigrants. We're a nation of immigrants. A lot of people talk about that, and we all have an immigrant heritage. So what we were trying to do with Immigrant Heritage Month is to highlight a lot of our different immigrant heritages and realize, hey, you know what, we all come from different places. The president always says, the only ones here are Native Americans, and maybe that's debatable, but because we all have to come from somewhere. But the thing is that we are a nation of immigrants, and this is really interesting because we need to highlight that, and we need to change the conversation around that. So, fast forward to 2015, in June of 2015, we were able to get the president to do a video for us. So if you see his weekly address for the first week of June, you'll be able to hear the president talk about Immigrant Heritage Month. We had a lot of celebrities and content. So Pitbull, Pitbull, Dania Ramirez, Casey Ho, Cassie Ho, maybe, I'm butchering it here. And I think Harry Shrump from Glee. So we had a lot of great videos and content. And again, the idea here was to say, look, we all come from a different immigrant heritage. I want to share with you our story. And that was really cool. I mean, Kobe Bryant retweeted our stuff, Blake Griffith, a lot of these big, celebrities. And the idea is not so much about the celebrities, but the reach that we can have. So we had over 830 million impressions for the month of June with Immigrant Heritage Month. And again, it's not about the numbers, it's not about the people, it's about the impact, about the storytelling. One of the biggest things in advocacy that I am able to see, and I see this consistently, and I see it with Forward more than anywhere else, is that storytelling in advocacy is the biggest tool that we have. Again, my job isn't to tell you what to do, it isn't to be a lobbyist, it isn't to tell you that you should pass XYZ policies, it's to bring you the people who are affected by this. I actually had a young gentleman, he just left the room, from Caltech. He emailed me, he saw that I was going to speak on Meetup, and he emailed me, hey, I'm a student at Caltech, I'm a physics student, I'm really interested in what you guys are doing because I am going through the legal immigration system and this is really difficult. I didn't realize how difficult this was. And there are numerous stories like that. There is a story of Kartik Mandaville. He is the CTO of Science Inc. Science Inc. is a media incubator out in Santa Monica. And one of the things that is really interesting with him, he is a graduate of Carnegie Mellon, went through the H-1B program, and he is now starting his own company, Spring Roll, and it's getting a lot of traction from a lot of the big companies, Facebook, Cargomatic, Science, and I think there are a lot of other companies on that list if you look online. But the really inspiring thing about Kartik was that he went from saying, I don't know how to advocate, I don't know how to really talk about the issue of immigration. How can I make a difference? How can I make change? And how can I make sure that other people hear me? To recently flying out to DC, that we was able to take a part of our trip to DC, and talking to the White House and talking to members of Congress and saying, look, this is my story. I'm Kartik. I'm from India. I went to Carnegie Mellon on a computer science degree. I'm now starting a company and creating jobs for Americans, and I'm really proud to be here in America. And to him, like, one of the most poignant things that he said is, advocacy is simple. I know how to do it. Thank you, Forward, for giving me the tools to be able to do this. But this is easy. Other people can do it. And again, that's when I can say I'm doing my job. We are doing our job as an organization, making sure that people like Kartik, people like Matthias are able to share their stories. So that's kind of a three-pronged successes of what we've been able to do. I think the interesting thing here, for at least you all, maybe more than the immigration aspect of things, is that, again, the tech community is growing. There are a lot of issues that affect it. One of the things that I keep seeing in LA specifically, I'm actually from LA, so I'm really excited to be here. I grew up in LA. I went to Pomona College and graduated here and spent 2 years away from it, and then I came back and Silicon Beach was a thing. Like, who would have known? Pasadena's taking off, and this is really exciting to be part of that wave. But with regards to Forward, I think it's really interesting that we may or may not be doing it the best, but at the very least, we're making sure that tech is being given a voice and a voice at the table. And I'll open it up to questions. Before I get to this last, I'll open it up to questions after I share the story. So previous to this, I was at the White House. I was working on the immigration policy team. So the kind of firestorm that set off a lot of this national immigration debate were the president's executive actions. So I was actually part of that team that was writing the executive actions. And how I came to know about Forward was literally managing my boss's calendar, and I kept looking at Forward. I'm like, why are they here? Why, they're consistently here. What are they talking about? So come to know, now I work at Forward, and I was asking some of my bosses that, and they were really one of the only organizations that were speaking up for the tech community when it came to immigration. And that's big. I mean, previous to Forward, honestly, I don't think that, nationally we're doing as good of a job highlighting a lot of people who are on F1 visas. What is an F1 visa? Or people who are on H1B visas? What are those visas? Or who are those people who are affected by that? So I asked my boss at the White House, who is Forward? This is really interesting, intersection of tech and politics. And then they come to know they were asking for input for the executive action, specifically with the high tech piece. So they asked Forward, hey, can you ask your constituents what a startup visa will look like? I'm like, okay, let's crowdsource this. So we actually did. We asked some of our folks in our districts, in our church, we call them churches, and we asked them, what would a startup visa look like? So we got all that feedback that we got from these roundtables, and we asked them, okay, what's your feasibly, realistically, what does this look like? So we gathered that information, packaged that back up into a policy brief, and submitted that to the White House. Again, we're talking, we can say a lot of things about mobilizing tech around politics and a lot of these other things, but practically and tangibly, that is what giving tech a voice is, making sure that we conduct these roundtables, are able to hear from them and get their opinions, and making sure that the right people are able to hear that. And that's still ongoing. That's probably going to be implemented, relatively soon. We're going to do a big campaign around that in the fall. So if you guys want to sign up, please feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, Forward is doing really interesting stuff. We're very fortunate in many ways to have a lot of these big tech leaders supporting what we do and coming together, trying to push policy forward. But honestly, there's just a big need. Tech in itself, it's growing and it's exciting, but the more tech evolves, the more clout that they're going to be able to have, and they're going to need a platform to push that forward. Pun intended here. So, all right. So, any questions? Yeah.
Let's give Josh a hand for subscription. We only have one microphone, so I won't be passing the mic around. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and speak loudly so we can all hear you. I'll let you.
In the areas of education, what areas have they looked at? Are they considering, here in California, we're at a disadvantage against other states because 6 states now have changed the rules for foreign language. Are you familiar? Where now coding has become a foreign language. So in Texas, Florida, Kentucky, New Mexico. For high school, you can take 3 years of coding instead of 3 years of French. And so, well, the problem is we're facing a human capital problem. Here in the United States, we're not training our kids to compete against foreign.
I think it's hard for me here in the back. Can you just give your question and elaborate your question?
So is that the kind of policy that Forward's looking, is to go to state level like California, to put California on equal footing with the states like Florida and Texas, to do public policy change that would affect our high school students to encourage them into the tech industry?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
So the question is, and this was with regards to education, is Forward looking to help promote policies that would put them on, maybe this is more tailored towards state legislation, but to help push policies that move the tech economy forward, or is that?
Well, yeah, we create human capital in
Yeah.
the United States instead of importing human capital.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'll answer on 2 different sides. One is the idea of Forward, yes, tech and politics, mobilizing tech around politics. That's our big mission statement. But 2 is there is that human capital problem. Immigration in some ways solves that and trying to get human capital here. But the second part of, and if you read Mark Zuckerberg's op-ed, that it goes back to educating people in STEM, trying to reform our education system. So right now our main issue area is immigration reform. and I told you guys earlier, I do think that that will change, and education reform is definitely at the top of that list. That being said, and with immigration, I know we're also getting involved on state legislation stuff. We're just trying to figure out how and what, and capacity and all of that. But the biggest thing here that we do see that we're trying to do is trying to make sure that, how do we make sure that, aside from giving tech for boys, but we are able to address the human capital issue? How are we promoting policies that move knowledge economy forward? In some ways that's kind of jargony and, repetitive, but really that's what it is. We're trying to make sure that, the human capital problem is addressed. If not addressed, at the very least, we're trying to help create solutions to a lot of these problems, whether it's here in California or at the national level, and trying to make sure we address that. But I can't address it specifically to education because that's not where we're invested at right now, but I do think that's a really interesting thing. But with Forward itself, I know that that's something we're considering pretty closely.
Question for you. I, like a lot of people in this room today, my story didn't start here as a child. My story started someplace else in the world. Are we being perceived from other parts of the world as mining the intellectual properties of the other countries, intellectual capital, the human beings that we import and allowed to be imported into the U.S.? And not that I'm for closing borders and things of that nature, but are we being perceived by other countries as draining or mining their intellectual property?
Yeah, so did everyone hear the question? No. So he mentioned that his story didn't start here. He's very happy to be here. But the question was, are we being perceived as the U.S. mining or draining human capital from the rest of the world? And I would say no. It's kind of funny because with them, and this is more, and I'll answer this on a more personal, this is more my personal opinion. The U.S. immigration system, even the legal immigration system, is very broken. The H-1B visa, for example, there's a cap on it. There's 85,000 visas, that H-1B visas are handed out every year. 233,000 people apply. And it's not just over the course of a year. 233,000 people applied in the span of 5 days. And that's really a crapshoot for a lot of people. And a lot of people, the idea, especially when it comes to tech, why they want to come here to the States is there's capital and there's a network. Silicon Valley is a great example of that. There's Silicon Beach and Pasadena and everyone else is slowly developing that. But there are a lot of other countries that are more open to the idea of bringing entrepreneurs here. I mean, for the one example that always comes to mind is Canada. And I'll give you another story that we have in our district, in our turf, Dollar Shave Club. How many of you guys know the Dollar Shave Club? Great. So the Dollar Shave Club is one of our biggest supporters, and their story is really interesting. So they're an e-commerce subscription shaving company. They're growing really fast and have a lot of funding. But the problem is that their CTO is in the States. He wasn't able to get an H-1B visa, and I think he was applying this year. But he wasn't able to get an H-1B visa, so he's operating out of Canada because it's just a lot easier to get a visa there. And so we literally have this booming, tech company that is growing exponentially, yet their CTO, their chief technical officer, is in Canada because he can't get the visa to be here. And a lot of people are looking elsewhere to start their companies. I mean, one of the biggest things that tech has in many ways revolutionized when it comes to immigration is the mobility piece. A lot of people are mobile, a lot of people are moving places. I mean, goodness, if you have a computer, if you have internet, in some ways you'll be fine. You can start your company still. I mean, obviously the funding and the network is a big, component to that, but our legal immigration system is broken, and just all parts of it, and we it's detracting a lot of talent and people who are educated here. I think the statistics, about half of the STEM in the masters of STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math, they're leaving the country, and we're saying, hey, we can't keep you here. You know, legally we can't find you a place here because of our cap limit. So if anything, I think we're currently detracting people because it's just so difficult to really get a visa and stay here.
Pomona. Here, once again. Curtis. Is it working? It will.
There it is. So, listening to you talk, I see that there's a bit of a potential conflict. There's your group promoting immigration policy reform, get people in tech, but there are a lot of people here too that are looking at the need to take our politicians' resources to focus on reforming the education system to get our own domestic people better educated for the tech. Do you see that as complementary or are they competitive given the limited bandwidth that we all are too aware of some of our politicians?
Yeah, again, I think this is a personal opinion, and I wish I would give you a more informed answer with the data, but I think there is a big gap with the number of people who are able to fill those slots. Like education reform, again, is at the top of our list because, again, we want to train people. It doesn't matter where you come from or where you're from. It just matters that you're able to do a great job and help push this knowledge economy forward. And I don't think that I view it as a complimentary thing. I think most of the tech people, or at least maybe our organization would see as that, and I would argue that a lot of the academics would too. But there's a lot of misperceptions, and I mean, look, immigration is a difficult issue, especially when it comes to it. It's a very polarizing one. Regardless, I still think that there are complements, and I mean, I can't see it being a problem if you have a lot of, a bigger pool of talent to, help, create stuff. I mean, the more people that you have, the more people that you train and that you educate, the more ideas you have for companies, the more ideas you can help, create, tech companies or whatever it is, or go into government to help solve a lot of those problems. I mean, I think the idea here is to make sure that it's not just, immigration, it's not just education, but we're really trying to get people, really bright, smart, creative people, wherever they're from, and making sure that they're able to have that avenue to, help problem solve.
Next question.
Hello, my name's Mike. I'm in the education space, so I'm not going to ask an education question. We're in the precipice right now of repeating what we did with the steel mills and industrial, where we basically legislated ourselves out of existence in those industries. And if we don't take care of these reforms in intellectual, the information age, then places like China and other places will become actually much more highly competitive in those spaces. And we'll be a critical country if we continue on this path. And so, but I was really confused between the type of reform you guys are talking about, tech, and the type of reform that we're talking about, say, security for our borders and protection. So that's why I'm really confused. So you're primarily focused on the tech part or all reform?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that again with more stories because that's kind of what we do at Forward. So how we got started. So Mark Zuckerberg was teaching an entrepreneurship class in East Palo Alto. He was volunteering with the Boys and Girls Club, and he asked the students, like, how many of you guys are going to college? And then, a couple of people raised their hands, and one specifically, Mark asked him, like, are you going to college? And he said, no, I can't. I don't have papers. I don't have this legal status to go. And they called them dreamers. There are many people who came over as, with their families and really to no fault of their own outside of their own decision making. They were born here. I mean, I would argue that they're as American as any other person who grew up in the States, and they aren't able to go to school. They aren't able to get financial aid. They have a really difficult time getting a driver's license, a bank account. You kind of name it. A lot of these basic necessities, and that really touched Mark, and that's what started Forward. And that was about 2.5, 3 years ago. So our position, and again, we're for comprehensive immigration reform. So that's border security goes into that, pathway to citizenship, which is a big piece, and high tech. I mean, I think I've talked a lot about the high tech piece, mainly because that's our constituent group, and that's again, I feel passionate about it. Just because I realize the impact that we're doing in this space. I meet with people who come from this background, and where I don't see them being highlighted. I don't see them, anyone really raising their voice and making sure that their voices are being heard. And that's really what drives me as a member forward. But I think in a bigger, more grander scale, we're part of this immigration coalition that we realize that the only way that we're going to push reform is being part of this broader coalition, like there was in 2013 and 2014, and making sure that people are able to work together and making sure that we're advocating and pushing for these policies. But yes, we're for a comprehensive immigration reform, but our constituent group is tech, and I'm very happy to work with that. Because again, Forward is one of the only voices, I think, that is working in this space. There's a lot of need, and I mean, goodness, Caltech, Harvard, UCLA, USC, they can all tell you there's a lot of students there. And at the end of the day, they tell me, Josh, thank you for doing this work. I know immigration reform isn't likely to happen soon, but at the very least, you're giving me a voice. You're giving me, in some ways, a purpose. Because I felt lost, I felt that no one was really looking out for me while I was going through the immigration system. And that's honestly that's really rewarding. As a job, as what I'm doing here with my work, take the politics aside, take a lot of the big funders that we have. At the core of what we do, it's a human issue, it's a people issue. And let's not forget about that and deviate from that, and being able to help out those individuals who don't feel like they have a voice, and feel like they don't, no one's really looking out for them, that, and being able to help them in that process, that's pretty powerful. So.
All right, thank you, Josh. I get a picture of our speaker with these beautiful people. Hang on 1 second. While he's testing the microphone and the camera. We'll see how it's going today. Okay, you ready? Everybody in the back, make us fun and photobomb. Okay, and your marks? Jeez.